You're listening to
They're going to call it a hard foul. They're going to call it a hard
All right, everyone. The Celtics are out west. They got blown out by the Lakers last night after winning their first two out there, but definitely some things to talk about, in particular with that Clippers game. Um, Last night, I don't know what you take from last night. We can certainly touch on it. It was another back-to-back following an overtime game, 5 out of 7, fifth game, 7 nights. And just to encapsulate what last night looked like and was all about, the Lakers shot, I think, like 1 for 13 from three in the third quarter and under 20% or under 25% overall for the quarter, and the Celtics just cut the lead from 18 to 15. So, that's what the offense looked like for the Celtics, to give you a sense, just in mud all night. At one point, they had the chance to cut the game within 10 points in the third quarter, and Brown and Tatum both missed four consecutive free throws. So it was just a game that, they looked like they were running mud all game. I don't know what to take from it, but Mike, I'd like to focus more, and I'll let you go where you want to go, but I'd like to focus more on what this team is looking like at the end of games as of late, and maybe if they would clean that up, things wouldn't seem quite as I don't know if bad's the right word, or not as good or whatever as it has been here in January for the Celtics.
Yeah, and we haven't had a pod, Jim, and we got to touch on that Atlanta game.
Well, I think it ties right in with the Clippers game, so it would all.
Yeah, it's just an alarming trend, and they didn't come out with a lot of intensity to start that Clippers game. I'm glad the defense picked up for the remainder of that game, but you're telling me in the second half, not counting overtime, you can only score 41, 42 points when against that Clippers lineup? It's just, the end of game execution. What were they up? They were up 4 points with 30 seconds left. Is that what it was? And
yeah,
you're throwing the ball in the corner. It's like it's just mindless. I don't know how to explain it, but it's the Clippers game, it's the Pelicans game, which they won with bad turnovers. It's the Atlanta game, is just. I mean, it was the fourth quarter. It was overtime. It was everything you could think of to lose that game and not be able to close out, just in spectacular fashion. Following guys only up 2 points. Like, so many terrible mistakes in that game. I think it's a bit alarming, some of this end of game execution stuff. I'm concerned about it.
Yeah, no, I think the thing was it wasn't really an issue, like a lot of things, for the first 50 games of the season or whatever. Well, they haven't played 50 games yet, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It really was not an issue, and all of a sudden it is. And the thing is, like, you're seeing a lot of the same stuff that's weird. Like, they're up 2 possessions at end of games, and they just, with under 30 seconds or under 20 seconds left, and they're getting the ball and they're not even getting a shot off or getting to the free throw line. They're just turning it over. I think you mentioned in the Atlanta game where Drew Holiday had a chance to lay it up and put the Celtics up 5. It almost felt like Atlanta had, submitted to the Celtics and said, all right, we lost this game, we're going to move on. And for some reason, Holiday makes a tough, kind of weird pass to Brown on the baseline that he can't handle, and it goes out of bounds, and it's Atlanta ball. And then you mentioned, catching in the corner. What was so strange so Brown had one offensive foul, right? Where in the regulation where he hooked the player. It was clearly he was hooked. Missoula was mad that he didn't get the timeout. And now we're talking about the Clippers game.
Yeah.
And then what do they do immediately? Like, there's almost they're playing great defense throughout the entire fourth quarter, but now they just let the Clippers go to the hoop in like 3-4 seconds. We didn't even have them take any time off the clock at all. So now it's a 3-point game. You know, they were up five. Maybe they were up four. They were up four, right?
Yeah, they're up
So now it's a 2-point game. And so then on the next possession, they have two timeouts. They use one to advance the ball, get the ball on the Brown. It goes into the corner. All right, not the best place for it, but here's the situation. It's like 8 seconds to go, 9 seconds to go, whatever. Brown can do one of two things. You know, he's been in this league a long time. He can just hold the ball, right? Worst case scenario is the refs call a jump ball, and we're going to be 7 seconds with the jump ball, and Clippers have no timeouts. So still not a great situation for the Celtics, not ideal, but that's your worst case if you hold it. Best case is they foul you, or you can also call a timeout and reset this thing.
Yeah, and in
And so
general,
instead, he just tosses the ball going towards the Clippers basket
yeah,
and turns it over for an easy layup for Jones. Like, and like I get some of the offensive struggles for the Celtics in that fourth quarter. They were playing in Jaden Springer. It was actually kind of comical to watch. It was the only thing that made it comical is because the Celtics defense was so good in that quarter. Like the Clippers were playing the Celtics like they had four guys on offense, and they just were not even covering Springer. Like there was not a guy within 7 feet of Jaden Springer. It was a little bit hilarious. And good for him. He made him pay on 1-3 that really I thought at that time sealed the game for the Celtics at the end of regulation. It was I was shocked that he hit it because on the previous three before, on a Tatum drive where he was wide open, he ail-mailed the basket by looked like 2 feet. But it's just this continuous thing, and you saw the same at the end of games. You saw the same thing against the Hawks that you alluded to, and the Pelicans, and they were fortunate to get wins against the Pelicans and the Clippers. But, you know, maybe last night's game against the Lakers would have been more competitive. Maybe they're hitting the free throws if they just end that game in regulation instead of, going to overtime and, having to really grind out a win. It's tough to really understand how an NBA Finals MVP can have two key turnovers like that. At the end of the game.
the ball's in his hands way too much at the end of games. That's the problem. The ball. I mean, in the Atlanta game too, they stopped going to Tatum when it was working. They're not putting the ball in Tatum's hands at the end of games as much as they should be, anyways. And I think that's a big part of the issue too. Even coming out of that timeout, why wouldn't you go to your best player? I don't understand why they're not running the offense through Tatum in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, no, and especially this year. Look, I think you could look at last year's playoffs and point to what Brown did at the end of games, and you could
That was
say
last year.
he's made for it, but he has not done it this year, and it's not put him in great spots either. What they're doing out of these timeouts,
Not at all.
No, so the ATOs have been really bad. And like Joe's got to see that too, where he's in the corner with nowhere to go. Like he can also call a timeout. There's just seems to be a lack of focus with this team on
Big time.
it raises the question of, is this a board team or is this a team that just doesn't have it this year? Are they worn out? Like it's tough to explain what's going on. You have games last night, which whatever, fine. Like that every
Yeah,
NBA team
I
seems to
still
perform
think
that way, but
I still think last night showed us some things. Like,
I don't know.
excuse me, Holiday didn't play the night before, and he was crap again last night. 1 for 5 from the field. He missed 2 wide open layups. So, and I'm not saying last night showed us a lot, other than the inconsistency of, that we continue to see with a lot of these guys. Al Horford didn't play well last night. He didn't play the night before. And also, you're going into last night. It's your 5th game in 7 days. Why aren't you playing Jalen Springer again? Why aren't you playing Jordan Walsh? Why aren't you playing Kata? Why aren't you playing Tillman? It doesn't make sense to not use your guys when you know you don't have any legs. Why aren't you giving? That's the perfect opportunity The NBA is giving you a roster of 5 million guys. It's the perfect opportunity to play those guys.
Yeah, I don't know. Like you're right about Holiday. I mean, he had been playing well over the last few games up until last night. But he played like shit last night. I mean, Derek White was a complete no-show. You in the third quarter, again, you had the only guys with more than 3 points were Porzingis Brown in the third quarter, were Porzingis Brown and Tatum, which is just kind of a shocking stat. I don't know why the NBA schedules it like this. I really don't. Where you do the 5 and 7, and then a back-to-back on national TV. It doesn't seem to make any sense. It leaves them with blowouts all the time. I thought last night kind of felt like the Milwaukee Bucks game from last season. Maybe not quite as bad, but still felt that way, where you could just tell early on that the Celtics just did not have it.
I guess my other question about last night too was, what kind of planning's going on where you play both Tatum and Brown against the Clippers? Like going into that game, one of them probably should have sat. And then when you played the Lakers, the other one sits. When you think about a 5 and 7, that gives you a chance to compete probably more than they did last night, but it's over now, so
Yeah, it's over now, and they got one of the two wins, which is always, I think, getting that first win is always kind of important and should always be the goal. That's why I was honestly kind of surprised to see them sit Holiday, Horford, and Porzingis. I know the Clippers had a lot of guys out, but like just secure that win and then roll the dice the next night and see what you got, right? But they seem to want to play for both. And think they could. And, that was probably a mistake in hindsight. It just doesn't work. You very rarely see teams respond to the 5 and 7, especially a back-to-back. So, whatever. Like, this team, regardless of last night, this team has issues. And they seem to just keep creating new ones for themselves. And it's maddening. I mean, they could be 2 West Coast trips in the month of January and 6-2 on those trips, and somehow you still have as much questions as you did at the end of December. Now,
well,
which
yeah,
doesn't make
because
any sense,
you
right? If you thought you were 6-2 on the West Coast, you would say, "Oh, the Celtics have righted the ship." But you look at this end of
yeah, but
game
this
stuff; it just doesn't. In performances like Toronto, you have to wonder, like, is this
yeah,
team what's going on? And there's still plenty of time, but you'd like to see just some level of consistency here and not new problems continue to arise. Whether it's the on-off numbers with Tatum or the lack of defensive intensity in the fourth quarter, or now this kind of meltdown in not even the last 2 minutes, the last 30 seconds of games. In the offensive rebounds, all of a sudden, live ball turnovers when you've been a non-turnover team throughout the entire season and going back to last season. It's just new things that continue to pop up. And I know they're getting people's like best shot at times. Again, like Lakers, the way they shot last night was ridiculous. The way the Clippers were hitting mid-range jumpers, you never ever see. But there's things they can control themselves. And you mentioned that first quarter, Mike, and this is another thing that kind of drives me crazy is they sometimes just like we can say, oh, that other team is shooting great, but they're not putting any defensive pressure on the ball. They're not defending the first pass. So they're making those things so easy that the stress of shot making isn't what it should be for your opposing team. And then it ramped up as the game went on, but again, it's just bad habits. And that's the thing that like worries me. It's the bad habits that just creep into your play at the worst possible times. And I'm kind of at a loss right now on what's going on because they're healthy, the talent's there, but it's not clicking.
yeah, they're not good at the start of games and they're not good at the end of games. And they definitely could go 6-2 on this West Coast trip. But as you mentioned, when you mix in losses to Toronto, where you don't even show up, and now in the month of January, you have 3 losses where you didn't even score 100 points. There's a lot of things that are bubbling to the surface. They haven't shot the ball well for most of the season. They had a nice little 2-game run here on the West Coast trip, other than last night. So maybe that's, maybe that the shooting it's finding itself finally. We'll see. But the defensive intensity is very inconsistent, whether it be game to game or in games where, like in Atlanta, you looked like the best defensive team in the world for most of that third quarter, parts of that fourth quarter, and then it's not a lack of effort in the Atlanta game; it's a lack of decision making. And so it's like you said, it's not consistent as far as what happens night to night. It's new things pop up, and they find new ways to keep a team in the game and finally hold on and win, like the Pelicans and against the Clippers, or they just let go of the rope completely. Like against Sacramento.
That Atlanta game should have just been a nice win going into the West Coast trip.
Oh, that would have been one of their best wins of the season, Jim.
Yeah, it should have been like you're coming off a back-to-back. I think they had an 8-point lead in the fourth quarter. It should have just been, that was a nice win. Even though Atlanta made a little run, you end up winning by 4 or 5 points. Nice win.
And you still had opportunities to win even after you screwed it up. Jason Tatum's at the free throw line. You're up. You're up 2. You're going to go up 3 if he hits it, so you can foul. And he misses it. And then your most veteran player, 2-time NBA champion, doesn't know the score. He fouls Trae Young. You can't make this stuff up. And then in overtime, you can't get the rebound.
Yeah, you had a chance. It would have been a 1-point game with the ball, and they missed 2 free throws, and you can't secure the rebound.
Exactly.
It's just. It's really.
And so you have that, and then you have complete no-shows. Like you can't score 100 points against Sacramento. You can't compete against Sacramento at home when De'Aaron Fox isn't even on the floor. You go into Toronto and you just get your ass kicked against maybe the worst team in the NBA.
Yeah.
And it's been going on for a while. What are they now? Are they 10-8 in their last 18? Are they 9-9? Something like that. So it's just win one, lose one. Win one,
for the
lose
month
one.
of January, they're like 2 games over 500, right? I think that's. And again, and that's what's starting the month on going 3-1 out west. Like that's where it doesn't make sense. It just. And then you come home and you mentioned it, and you lose. You have a kind of the soft pottier schedule. And you lose 3 out of 5. It doesn't make any sense. They end this thing in Dallas tomorrow, and I have no idea what Celtics team is like. Dallas, even without Luka, is going to have all the incentive in the world. It's a national televised game. This is the team
last game of a road trip.
Yeah, this is a team that blasted. I mean, let's be honest. The Celtics embarrassed the Mavericks in the NBA Finals. I like it was really with the exception of a couple moments and that one game 3 for game 4 for Dallas or whatever it was. They were just embarrassed. So they're gonna have, even without Luka, just your pride kicks in, right? If you're the Mavericks, you're gonna want to show out. And so I don't know. Like I don't know how the Celtics going to look at this game. Do they look at this as like a meaningful moment on national TV, or do they just this has been a long month, get me home? I have no idea. I do not know what to expect.
Well, I expect what we've seen recently. If they go into the game and whoever they're leaving open as part of the game plan is missing shots, the Celtics are going to be fine. What I'm concerned about is when the game plan's not working out and Dallas is hitting threes, that there's no in-game adjustments and they just kind of pack it in and they can't figure it out. So we'll see.
It isn't the in-game adjustments that worry me as much. It's their play. Like, are they getting up into guys' shirts? Are they trying to take away space? Like, oh, fine, player X who shoots 20% is all of a sudden 3 or 4 against you, or 4 or 5. That sucks. But are you doing the other things? And like that's a part that I just don't see enough of.
Well, we haven't seen it this whole road trip.
Teams will shoot really well, but you won't see any deflections and steals. Like I think the Clippers game encapsulated this great. The first quarter, there was no deflections, no steals, no turnovers, and no fast break points. The Celtics created, I think they had one Luke Kornet block. That was it. Like that shows no defensive intensity, right? That's what that shows. Like they're just not getting after it against a team that doesn't have their stars. I think the Clippers for the rest of the game had 25 turnovers because they picked up the defensive intensity. And then all of a sudden, if they're making contested mid-range jumpers, you say, okay, the Clippers are just making shots, but you can see the Celtics are at least digging in. And then the only time I felt like they weren't again was in the beginning of the third, where they just let that, I'm not even going to say his name because he's a disgusting woman beater, get to the hoop anytime he wanted and allowed him to get hot and kind of get going in Porter. And so the Celtics, took the, kind of hand off the rope again and allowed a guy to get going, and then all of a sudden they're making shots. It took Jaden Springer to come in and kind of stop that. But that's like you can see it, right? So Derek Jones Jr. is making some threes, maybe more than he usually does.
Well, he started 7 for 7.
But you kind of letting him get comfortable. That's not game plan. That's not Joe Mazzulla's fault. Like last night, Gabe Vincent was hitting a ton of shots, more than he usually does. But there was no resistance.
Well, I'm not saying
there was no resistance to start the offense. There was just no resistance. I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
I'm not saying, when I'm saying game plan specific, I'm not blaming Joe Mazzulla. I'm saying the players can't adjust.
Yeah.
I'm saying the players are showing a lack of focus, the ability to do this stuff. They start seeing threes go in. It's kind of this, woe is me attitude. I'm not going to get up in people because the game plan says leave these guys open. And I don't feel like getting up and playing hard defense.
Yep.
I don't want to do that right now. And then kind of not the best attitude with end game interviews with some of these guys and talking about how their game has changed this year and they're being used different. Kind of excuse making. The only one who's not making excuses really is the coach. And I wish they would follow his lead a little bit more.
Yeah, I
they're going to wake up.
Jaylen Brown interview, I didn't think much of it. I didn't think it was much different than he usually sounds or how he usually approaches these interviews after games. He did say it's a new role and he's getting used to it. But he never sounds happy, like in these interviews. And I don't know. I thought that was more of a kind of sports talk creation. But whatever it is, it's not happening on.
Well, when you're playing the way you're playing, Jim, and you seem disfocused like this team does, these are the things that bubble to the surface, and they got to get their shit together.
Yeah, I don't, but I'm just telling you, I didn't. I went back and listened to it. I didn't think anything of it. It's when it comes to him, he's not a jovial guy up there on the.
Is he an all-star this year, in your opinion?
I don't know. I'd have to go through the other players, but he's borderline. I think the way he's played.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's
borderline the way he's played.
I think it speaks to where this team is. He's got to be better.
Yeah.
And free throw shooting again. Brown has actually been really good recently. Got it up from 68% to like 76. So that tells me over like the last 10 games, he had to be shooting like 90% or something. But him and Tatum, I mean, now Tatum's down to like 78, 77% from the line. Like this stuff has got to improve. Like there's so many little things that's got to get better. Holiday and White being more consistent. Sam Hauser can have a great game one night, and then you see box scores where it's just like 0 for 7, 0 for 8. They just need more consistent play. They need more focus, top to bottom. Really do.
Let's talk about Derek White. Has he hit a wall? Because he does not look like the same guy.
He hasn't looked like the same guy for a long time.
For a few weeks now. Has he hit a wall? Did he play way too much basketball? with these Olympics and, these deep runs. I just, he does not look like himself right now. Like not even like last night, shots weren't even close.
Well, yeah, he shot an air ball in the third quarter.
There's been times where he's just felt like a little bit unplayable, like which is kind of surprising. You go back to the Clippers game, you felt like maybe he was getting it back a little bit, but
even in that game, he went 4 for 16 from three.
Yeah, he doesn't look. It doesn't look right. Doesn't feel right with him. I look at you can look at Holiday's game last night and say it was bad, but I think the previous week and a half, 2 weeks, he was really starting to look like himself again, and he was shooting the ball much better.
Much better.
So maybe last night was just a one-off. It was just, maybe he's a guy offensively at this point. He needs other players to be good for him to be good. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Maybe he's just not the guy he was, 3-4 years ago, which is fine, right? That's not a big deal. But White, he has been a guy where he doesn't need everyone else to be going. Like he has been a guy that can lift this offense up by himself when they're not going, and you're just not getting any of that. And I don't remember a slump outside of when he was first traded here and getting accustomed to what being a Celtics was and all that. I don't remember a slump being like this since he's been with this team.
Yeah, maybe we don't remember one because they were winning so much and they were winning by 1,000,000 points every game last year. So he might have had one, but this is bad and this is prolonged. And if it is him hitting a wall, I think he needs to sit. And you gotta give guys a chance, because you need him. You need him in the playoffs. You need that guy to be Derek White, and he's far from his capabilities right now. He's not close.
No,
So that's something that the Celtics brass has to figure out. Like, is he hurt? Is there something going on that he needs to not be playing? Because why not heal him up? Why not give him the Porzingis treatment? What's the big deal? Like, this guy's your third most important player.
Well, so the Celtics schedule to the All-Star break really doesn't get any easier, and I can't remember a Celtics team that really needed an All-Star break more than this one. It feels like right now they are limping their way through this month again. It felt like they had turned the corner, and we've gotten into why they have not. We spent a lot of time on negatives, Mike. Is there anything that you see right now that makes you think, oh, there's reason to think that this is going to be fine and they're going to right this ship soon?
No, the world's burning. They're going to figure this shit out. I haven't seen anything that gives me pause. Like they've been a bad product. They're not really fun to watch as a fan either. So yeah, I'm not looking at the schedule, Jim. I'm at the point of even if they lose games, I'm interested in how they play in their level of intensity. That's where I am right now. If they start playing the right way, they're talented enough that they're going to go on a run. So I'm okay if they lose some more games, but they're showing up. They're playing hard. They're getting good looks. Tatum and Brown aren't turning the ball over. They start hitting some free throws. I'm into that. Let's get back on track. Derek White starts making some progress. I think this might be their rock bottom right now. I think we're at the point of let's start seeing the improvement in play.
Well, that's where I think I'm going to put a little bit of sunshine on this. I think since the Magic game, you've seen more moments of good basketball than you've seen bad. On the whole, if you look at the whole of these games,
but the bad has been real bad.
And I'm going to take out last night. Like that Hawks game. Outside of those last 2 minutes, you felt like that was going to be a really good win. They played a lot of good basketball with guys, without, their full roster. They came back and the Warriors that might have been more about the Warriors just being completely lifeless, but they stuck it to them. I mean, in the Clippers game, again, up until that last 30 seconds. Like, and I know the Clippers sat a lot of guys. I get that. But it was still a game on the road. They were going to come through, and they played really well in that fourth quarter. When it was not crunching time, they showed up and they did what they had to do. But again, we spent enough time on it. Don't need to go back. So there have been moments where it looks like have figured it out, and the defensive intensity is coming, and they're making plays other than 3-pointers to get them, in positions to win. But as you said, the moments that have been bad have been so bad that it's almost it negates whatever they had done previously in those games. So for me, there has been signals, especially on the defensive end, I think, that they're coming out of this, that there is some team focus, but it just needs to be more consistent. I mean, the only consistent player they have right now, and this is a positive, but at the same time, you always wonder where, he's going to go down with an injury or whatever. But is Porzingis is like he's continued to play well. He's continued to be what looks like their best player at times when he's been on the floor. And that's what makes it also weird too, because you think with him and the way he's going, they would just be cruising right now. But they're not even. That's not even helping. It's really a bizarre time. Mike, over these before the All-Star break, it doesn't get any easier. They get the Mavericks, Rockets. They get the Mavericks to end out this road trip. Then they go home and they get the Rockets, Bulls, Pelicans, Sixers, Cavs, Mavericks again. So they have a lot of games at home coming here. They're on the road against the Cavs, they're on the road against the Bulls, but there's a lot of games at home before the All-Star break. Hopefully they can, but again, against pretty good competition. I don't know what to expect. You hope they can kind of figure this out and get on a roll a little bit. The other tough thing is it feels like they're playing every other night until the All-Star break, so there is no real prolonged break at all until we get to that point. Yeah. And then, of course, the other day we got to watch out for is the trade deadline. And I guess that's my last question to you. We've spent a lot of time on this pod talking about how Jaden Springer is probably the one to go. Does the game the other night give you any pause on moving on from him?
Well, as a fan, it does, but I think the reality of it is he doesn't cost the Celtics $4 million. So yeah. I think they're trying to move him, and he's gone, Jim.
I think he's gone too, and I think, well, I don't know if he's gone for sure, but I think it doesn't change my perspective on it too much. I think it kind of helps his value that he played a little well finally. He's such a minus offensive player that you're not going to use him in the playoffs anyways. So if you can get somebody that can help you with your offense when it's struggling in the playoffs potentially, maybe that makes sense, right? I just don't. Do you see any situation where Jaden Springer is getting minutes in the playoffs?
Oh, if guys are hurt, but that would be
that
it.
Point, you'd probably toast anyways, right?
Yeah. I would have liked to see him play last night because he probably still has fresh legs because he hardly plays, But no, I mean that's the only thing I can think of. Or if they can move Tillman and bring something back for a guy that has a Tillman contract and it all matches up in the perfect world. It's hard to make trades in the NBA, and obviously it's going to be super hard for the Celtics. And Reggie Miller, I don't know if he was joking around last night.
Yeah, talk about this. This was insane.
So the Celtics are somehow going to trade for C.J. McCollum and Jabari Grant with all the money they have available to do it and all the roster flexibility we have in Boston. And on top of it, all the tradable assets that we have as well.
How is he a national color guy and have no idea? No idea how the cap works. Or
well, he also said that this is in Reggie Miller's perfect world. But yeah, it was bizarre.
But in a perfect world, you're dealing in the NBA world. It was just that shows no preparation going into the game of trying to The other thing on TNT I noticed last night, not that it matters, but they never mentioned that this was fifth and seventh games for the
They
Celtics.
did. Kevin Harlan mentioned it in the third quarter.
He did finally in the third quarter.
Yeah. But I mean, it's not their responsibility to mention. I mean, I
I
don't know. My
think,
favorite thing about the TNT broadcast is when Shaq was talking about Andrew DeClerc.
oh, I missed this.
They were asking him about the Celtics Lakers rivalry when he played for the Lakers, and he was like, "They're like, did you get up for that game?" And he's like, "Well, you know, they had Antoine Walker, but they had Andrew DeClerc covering me." That's went off. He went off on Andrew DeClerc, and then nobody knew who he was, so they looked him up on the tablet, and they were like, "Can we just leave this guy alone? He's probably just like sitting at home." Hanging out. And Shaq was like, Andrew DeClerc was barbecue chicken. It's like, which he was a little off because I don't was Antoine Walker on the injured? Yeah, he was. But
he was.
like the good team that could have played Shaq in the finals, I think it would have been like Tony Vati, not Andrew DeClerc. It would have been like Tony and Pinko or whatever his name was. Yeah.
That team would have got swept too.
I don't know. I think they would have put up a better fight than the Nets did because that team could shoot threes.
Yeah, maybe. I don't think
Maybe they would have won a game or two.
Well, the Nets won one game. So, all right, Mike, anything else you want to close us out with? Anything around the league? I know the Butler stuff is bubbling up, but
yeah, the numbers that Jokic put up last night was incredible.
Oh, it looks like a child's game to him.
I mean, that's just unbelievable. In the Philadelphia 76ers keep losing, so that's good. That's as a Celtics fan, you can always take pleasure in their demise.
Yeah, they're 12 games under 500, 11th in the East right now. It's I can't explain it. You know, it seems like they have Embiid sometimes, but
Embiid hasn't played in a while though.
Yeah, it's getting to a point where you really got to wonder if they're going to make the playoffs at all.
Which is great. And I love watching just Paul George suck night after night after night. It's wonderful. Because that's the next 4 years. So that's great.
Yeah, I know. And if the season ended today, the Celtics would be playing the Magic in the first round.
Yeah, Franz came back last night, but the Magic are playing bad.
Yeah, they haven't played well a bit.
So they're down to the 10th seed. I thought they were the 10th seed in the East. Aren't they 500 right now?
Well, you basically have 500 teams or worse from 7 to 10. Like the Bulls are the 10th team, and they're 7 games under 500.
Okay, yeah. Also, the Magic is 7. Yeah, I think the Magic will turn it around. Maybe they're just getting their rotations back, but Franz looked good at least. They looked bad last night, but at one point, I think he had like 20 points. So I think they're going to be okay in Orlando.
I think they'll be okay too. With that, I guess we'll close out, Mike. Hopefully, things get better soon. Starting with Saturday's game against the Mavericks, and maybe, coming home, they'll finally respect their home court and start to try to protect it a little bit more. But the doldrums
Probably
of winter.
not.
Yeah, the doldrums of winter. All right.
Yep.
Talk to you soon, everybody.